Your Excellency, President Paul Kagame, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I'd like to thank Your Excellency for gracing us with your presence today. And before you're formally introduced, I wanted to just take a moment to share with you what we're doing to develop Africa's next generation of conservation leaders. As you know, our goal at African Leadership University is to develop 3 million leaders for Africa over the next 6,000 days. We use that timeline of 6,000 days because that is the amount of time that we have left before Africa has the largest workforce in the world. And when we think of 2035, that sounds far away. But if you think of 6,000 days, then it seems like it's just around the corner. And so we have a sense of urgency with which we have to develop leaders who can address Africa's greatest challenges and to capture its greatest opportunities. And so we set a goal of developing 3 million leaders who become problem solvers for Africa. And one of the big challenges that we've identified is a set of what we call the 7 grand challenges of Africa. Big problems like healthcare, education, urbanization, governance, youth unemployment. But we also have what we call the 7 great opportunities. And these are things where Africa has been blessed. We have unusual competitive advantage, the low-hanging fruit. So these are things like agriculture, tourism, the empowerment of women, regional integration, and of course, wildlife conservation. And so, in looking at the schools that we would set up in the university, we thought, we don't just want to set up a school of law, a school of engineering, and a school of medicine. We want to set up schools that can help and disciplines that can really help to address these grand challenges and great opportunities. Now, the School of Wildlife Conservation, which is the first initiative that we're trying to set up within this vein, we believe that the only way to prevent Africa from entirely obliterating all of its wildlife is if the following 4 things happen. The first, it has to benefit African communities. The whole idea of conservation is actually, at the heart of it, a human concept. Nature knows how to take care of itself. If human beings were not in the picture, wildlife would just be flourishing normally, as it has been. And therefore, conservation must first and foremost be about people, not animals. Communities must see economic benefits, jobs, income. They must see wildlife as an asset that they own. And once they see it as an asset, then they want to invest in it to make it more abundant, and so that they can benefit from it today, and then they can benefit from future generations. And so that's the first thing that we believe must happen. The second belief we have is that it must be a priority for our political leaders. We believe that in Africa, because our institutions are weak, African leaders have much more impact on our societies than anywhere else in the world. And so our leaders must see conservation as a key pillar of economic growth. And they should realize that as we develop Africa, we shouldn't be just simply trying to copy the rest of the world. We need to think about what are our unique assets that we have that no one else has, such as our wildlife. And how do we then capitalize on that as a pillar of economic growth? And we see what happens when countries do that, like in Rwanda, where since for the last 24 years, under the leadership of His Excellency President Kagame, it has been made a national priority, and we've seen the results here. As Peter Fernhead shared yesterday, for example, what is happening in Kagame National Park. And we're also seeing this in countries like Botswana, Namibia, and so forth. So when political leaders see this as a priority, then, like everything else in Africa, we live or die by the quality of leadership that we have, and we're seeing that when it's prioritized, once again, conservation thrives. The third belief we have is that conservation is less an issue of conservation biology and ecology as it may have been in the past, but it's much more about issues around politics and power and economics. And as such, we need to bring good management and business skills into the sector. And such as, if we look at the success of an organization like African Parks, what they've done is really to bring good management and leadership skills into conservation. And so by bringing top African talent into conservation, people whose other choices may have been to go and work at Google or Facebook or McKinsey, how do we get those types of, how do you get that caliber of talent to get into conservation? We need to develop more African leaders who have the innovation, the talent, and the leadership capabilities to really make this opportunity real. And this is the niche we're trying to fill with our School of Wildlife Conservation. And finally, the fourth pillar that we think is crucial is that conservation must be led by Africans. Too much of our conservation today is not led by Africans, unfortunately. And to the extent we see Africans in conservation, very often they are doing the lowest level jobs. They're the game guides, they're the trackers, they're the waiters. And we need African wildlife entrepreneurs who are going to lead our initiatives and who are going to create the wildlife businesses like Nonkubela mentioned earlier. And this is really how we believe wildlife will finally become the great opportunity for the continent. And this is why we're so excited to be here in Rwanda, because Rwanda is a perfect case study of all of these four things in place. It has made it as a priority, it has brought in good management and leadership skills, and it benefits communities. And so as we thought about where we wanted to focus the efforts that we were doing to develop conservation leaders, we thought there was no better place than to do it right here in Rwanda. And we hope that all of the delegates that have come from different parts of the world, Your Excellency, about 50% of the people here, this is their first time in Rwanda. We hope that you will take the lessons that you see here back to your countries. And many of you will be visiting Kagame National Park over the weekend, and we'll be able to see what happens when we actually look at conservation as one of our unique assets and how it can be used to drive economic development. Thank you very much.